They sealed the abbey doors at dusk. I remember the sound before anything else. Iron scraping against iron. The slow, deliberate slide of the bar as it dropped into place. It was not slammed shut. It was closed carefully, as if the men outside wanted to be sure it would never open again. At the time, I believed it was for our safety. The Abbey of St. Aldric stood alone on a hill of stone and wind. No village clung to its walls. No road passed nearby. Only a narrow path twisted up through the trees, and that path had already gone quiet. Below us in the valley, smoke hung low and unmoving. Funeral smoke, the kind that does not rise, only spreads. The plague had reached the village's days before it reached us. We watched it from a distance at first, like a storm moving across the land. Bells rang in the valley, fires burned day and night. Then the bells stopped. When Brother Matthew secured the final lock on the gate, the courtyard fell silent. No prayers, no hymns, just the sound of wind brushing against stone. Brother Matthew did not turn around when he finished. He crossed himself once, whispered something under his breath, and walked away. That night, the bell rang. It was just past midnight when the sound rolled through the abbey. One deep toll, slow and heavy, as if the bell itself were tired. Then another. I sat upright in my cell, my heart racing. Bells were not rung at midnight. Not ever. We gathered in the tower with torches shaking in our hands, expecting to find one of the brothers at the rope, but the rope hung still. The bell swayed gently above us, moving as though someone had just released it. No hands, no wind strong enough to explain it. The metal was still vibrating when we arrived. The abbot told us it was nothing. He said old towers settle. Old bells remember motion. He ordered us back to our cells and warned us against superstition. I obeyed. Sleep did not. By morning, the gates remained sealed. We expected supplies, bread, letters, a sign that the world beyond the hill still existed. None came. The path below the abbey lay empty. On the third day, we rationed our food. On the fifth, Brother Luke began to cough. At first it sounded harmless, a dry, shallow thing. But it grew deeper, harsher, until each breath sounded like it scraped his lungs raw. We moved him to the infirmary and prayed over him, careful not to touch his skin. When dark marks appeared along his neck and beneath his arms, the abbot went silent. That night, the bell rang again, 3 times. After that, the abbey changed. The air grew heavier. The silence stretched too long between sounds. We noticed scratches on the inside of the gate, long, deep marks cut into the wood, as if something had clawed at it in desperation. We told ourselves they had always been there. Footprints appeared in the courtyard dust, bare feet, leading in circles, ending abruptly. Sometimes after sunset, a smell drifted through the corridors, burnt tallow mixed with rot. It clung to our robes and refused to fade. We prayed more, louder, longer, as if volume alone could reach God. By the 7th day, hunger set in. We boiled roots pulled from the frozen garden. We chewed bark. We shared water sparingly. The abbot locked the crypts in the lower halls, forbidding anyone to go near them alone. He said fear makes men imagine things, but at night, whispering echoed through the walls. On the 9th day, Brother Luke died. His body was light when we lifted it. Too light. We wrapped him in linen and carried him to the chapel, intending to bury him beyond the walls at first light. When morning came, the gates would not open. The lock refused to turn. The bar would not lift, so we laid him before the altar. That night, the bell rang again. When we returned to the chapel at dawn, Brother Luke's body was gone. The abbot ordered the doors sealed and forbade us from speaking of it. That was when understanding began to creep in, slow and terrible. The doors were not closed to keep the plague out. They were closed to keep something in. On the 12th night, knocking began beneath the stone floors, not frantic, not loud, just slow, patient taps, as if whatever knocked knew we had nowhere to go. The abbot gathered us and finally spoke of the past. Years ago, during another sickness, the abbey had opened its gates to the villagers below. Too many came. Fear spread faster than disease. Violence followed. The monks sealed the doors to restore order. No one reopened them. The dead were placed in the crypts. The sick were locked below. The bell was rung to count those who did not survive the night. He said we had sworn silence. He said God forgave us. That night, the knocking grew louder. On the 14th day, Brother Matthew tried to open the gate again. He clawed at the lock until his fingers bled. He begged forgiveness aloud. When the iron shifted slightly, he laughed. Then the bell rang. We found him at dawn lying beside the gate, his mouth filled with dirt. The gate was still sealed. By then, only 6 of us remained. We stayed together, backs against the walls, listening to footsteps pace the halls. Sometimes they stopped just outside the door. Sometimes they whispered our names in voices we recognized. On the 15th night, the abbot confessed everything. He said the bell was never meant to call the living. It was meant to count the dead. At midnight, the bell rang 6 times. The door burst open. I ran. I do not remember finding the passage beneath the wine cellar or how the stones gave way so easily. I only remember the sound behind me, hands scraping stone, voices praying prayers I had spoken all my life. When I reached the forest, I did not look back. At dawn, the abbey stood silent on the hill. Smoke rose thin and black from its roof. They say the gates are still sealed. They say no one enters now. But when the wind is right and the night is very still, the bell of St. Aldric rings once more, counting those who believed the doors were closed for mercy.